The ruins of the alien city smelled of smoke and blood. Broken towers leaned like dead trees. The ground was black with fire and ash. Soldiers in heavy boots marched across the rubble, their rifles aimed at every shadow. No one trusted this place. Every corner could hide death. In the middle of the destroyed city stood a cage. It was tall, made of thick metal bars that glowed with electricity. Inside that cage sat the creature everyone called a monster. She looked almost human. That was the most frightening thing about her. Her skin shimmered faintly under the harsh lights, marked with strange patterns like silver veins. Her long black hair hung wild, tangled from days of captivity. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark, too bright, too sharp. And when she opened, her mouth, sharp white teeth, flashed like knives. The soldiers who guarded the cage never went close. They had heard the stories. She had torn through an entire squad before they caught her. They said her claws could cut steel. They said she drank blood. No one dared test if the stories were true. She's not a girl, one soldier whispered to another. She's death itself. The alien sat still, her knees pulled to her chest, chains binding her wrists. She did not look at the soldiers. She kept her head low, but her silence made her even more dangerous. The soldiers muttered, spat, and called her names: monster, demon, beast. That night, the camp was tense. The war between humans and her kind had dragged on for years. Both sides were tired, both sides desperate. And here, in this cage, sat what many believed was a weapon, a thing to be studied, controlled or killed. Then came the man. He was not like the others. His uniform was the same, worn and dirty from battle, but his eyes were different. While the other soldiers laughed harshly and kept their distance, he stepped closer to the cage. His boots crunched on the gravel. The guards called out, "Stay back. She rip your throat out." But he didn't stop. The alien girl lifted her head. For the first time in hours, her glowing eyes focused on someone. She watched him carefully, her lips parting just slightly, as if ready to snarl. The man stopped, only a foot from the bars. He studied her face, not like she was an animal, but like she was a person. The other soldiers grew restless. "What are you doing?" one barked. "She's not human. She'd kill you." But the man's voice was calm. "If she wanted me dead, I'd already be dead." Silence fell. Even the alien froze. Slowly the man raised his hand. He pressed it against the cage, where the bars hummed with low electric light. His palm rested there, open, steady, inches away from the girl's chained hands. Gasps echoed from the guards. The alien's eyes narrowed. Her breathing quickened. The soldiers gripped their rifles tighter, ready to fire. Everyone waited for the moment she would lunge, bare her fangs, and tear at him. But instead, the girl trembled. Her chains rattled softly. She did not strike. She did not hiss. Slowly, hesitantly, she raised her own hand. Her clawed fingers reached toward the bars. She stopped just short, shaking, as if the choice burned inside her. The man did not move. His hand stayed steady, patient. His eyes did not show fear. The alien girl let out a sound. It was not a growl. It was not a hiss. It was a sob. Her fingers touched the bars, not to slash but to mirror his hand. Electricity sparked where her skin brushed the metal. Pain flashed across her face, yet she did not pull back. For the first time since her capture, she reached for someone not as a monster, but as something more. The soldiers watching could not believe it. Their mouths hung open. Some cursed under their breath. Others whispered in fear, like they had just seen something impossible. The man's voice was quiet, but every ear caught his words. "You're not a monster," he said. The alien girl flinched, as if no one had ever spoken those words to her before. Her glowing eyes filled with something the soldiers never thought they'd see: tears. The guards shouted, "Step away now!" But the man ignored them. His hand stayed on the bars. Her trembling fingers stayed close, and in that moment, the war around them seemed to pause. No gunfire, no shouting. Only the silence of a ruined city and the quiet courage of a human soldier who dared to see the truth. The cage still hummed with electricity. The alien girl was still chained, still feared. But something had changed. For the first time she had been touched not with chains, not with cruelty, but with kindness. And for the first time, she did not feel like a monster. The soldiers didn't know what to make of it. The alien didn't know what to make of it. Even the man himself wasn't sure what he had just started. But deep inside, both of them knew nothing would ever be the same again. The camp did not sleep that night. Soldiers kept talking in whispers, their eyes always drifting toward the cage and the ruins. They had all seen it, how the so-called monster had touched a human's hand instead of tearing it off, fear mixed with confusion. Some swore it was a trick. Others thought the soldier had gone insane. But none of them could explain why the alien girl had not attacked. The man who had dared to touch her sat alone near the fire. His name was Sergeant Kane. He had fought in the war for years. He had seen blood, betrayal, and death. But what he had seen in the alien's eyes tonight had shaken him more than all of it. It wasn't hatred. It wasn't hunger. It was fear. The alien girl had looked at him the way a cornered child might look at fire, terrified, desperate, yet unable to turn away. Kane could not forget the tears in her glowing eyes. Monsters did not cry. The commander of the unit, Captain Rourke, marched up to him. His face was hard, his voice sharp. "You broke protocol," Rourke hissed. "You do that again, and I'll have you court-martialed. That thing is dangerous. It's not a girl, it's a weapon." Kane met his eyes. "Weapons don't cry." Rourke scowled as if Kane had spoken blasphemy. "You're letting it get in your head. Don't forget what she did. Entire squads wiped out, claws through armor. She's not your friend, she's our enemy." Kane didn't argue. He only said, "Maybe we've been wrong." The captain walked away, furious. But the seed of doubt had already been planted, and Kane knew it. Later, when the camp was quiet, Kane returned to the cage. The guards tried to stop him, but he waved them off. "I'll take the risk." The alien girl lifted her head as he approached. Chains clinked as she shifted. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark, but there was no anger in them tonight. Kane crouched near the bars. "Can you understand me?" he asked softly. The girl blinked. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, with a voice rough and trembling, she whispered a single word, "Yes." Kane's heart skipped. The guards behind him swore. No one had expected her to speak their language. "What's your name?" Kane asked. The girl hesitated, as if remembering something painful. "Lyara." Her voice cracked, and Kane could tell she had not spoken in a long time. "Lyara," Kane repeated gently. "Why do they call you a monster?" Her eyes dropped. Her chained hands trembled. "Because monsters are easier to kill than people." Kane felt the weight of her words. He knew what war propaganda did. He had seen humans call their enemies beasts, savages, demons, all to make killing them easier. But hearing it from her lips was different. "Do you hate us?" Kane asked carefully. Lyara looked up. Her glowing eyes shimmered with sorrow. "I don't know what I feel anymore. Hate is heavy. Fear is heavier." Kane's chest tightened. This was no monster. This was a girl broken by war. The next morning, rumors spread fast. Soldiers whispered that the alien had spoken. Some laughed nervously. Others looked uneasy, like the ground beneath their beliefs was crumbling. Captain Rourke was furious. He ordered double guards on the cage. He told the men that Kane was being fooled by alien tricks. "It's in her nature," he barked. "She'll tear his throat when he least expects it." But the men were no longer sure. They had seen the cage. They had heard the whispers. And some of them wondered if maybe the monster wasn't what they had been told. That night, Cain returned again. Liara was awake, her glowing eyes watching him. He slipped a small piece of bread through the bars. "Eat," he said. She stared at it, suspicious. "Poison?" Cain shook his head. He tore a piece off, chewed it, swallowed. Then he offered it. Again, slowly, shakily, she took it. Her claws brushed his fingers, but instead of tearing, they only trembled. She lifted the bread to her lips and ate like someone who had been starving for days. When she finished, she looked at him differently, not like a guard, not like an enemy, but like something she hadn't seen in a long time. Hope. "Why?" she whispered. Cain leaned closer. "Because you're not a monster. And I want to prove it." Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time, she did not look away. The following day, an order came down from high command. The alien was to be transported to a research facility. Scientists would study her, tear her apart if necessary, to learn her secrets. The soldiers prepared for the transfer. Chains were tightened, weapons loaded, but Cain stood frozen. He remembered Lyra's trembling voice, her words, "Because monsters are easier to kill than people." If he let her go with them, she would never return. That night, as the camp prepared to move, Cain made his choice. He would not let them take her. Not because she was useful, not because she was powerful, but because for the first time, someone had dared to see her not as a monster, but as a person. And Cain knew that choice would change everything. The night was heavy with silence when Cain made his move. The soldiers slept in their tents, rifles leaning against walls, their breaths rising and falling like waves. Only the guards near the cage stayed awake, yawning, tired. Cain approached. Slowly, carrying a lantern in one hand and a folded paper in the other. The paper was stamped with the captain's seal, fake but convincing. "Orders," Cain whispered to the guards. "Transfer begins tonight. Quiet move, no noise." The guards exchanged uncertain looks. No one wanted to argue with official orders, especially not in the middle of the night. They stepped aside. Cain opened the cage. The chains rattled as Liara looked up, confused. Her glowing eyes flickered with both fear and hope. "Come with me," Cain whispered. Her voice was hoarse. "They will kill you for this." "Maybe," Cain admitted. "But if you stay, they'll kill you first." She hesitated, then slowly stood. Her legs were weak from days of captivity, but her will pushed her forward. Cain supported her weight as they slipped into the ruins. By dawn, the camp was in chaos. Captain Rourke shouted, furious, as soldiers scrambled to find the missing prisoner and the traitor who had freed her. The order was clear: bring them back, dead or alive. Cain and Liara moved through the broken city, hiding in shadows. Smoke still rose from buildings burned in the war. Dogs barked in the distance, searching. Drones buzzed overhead. Liara stumbled, clutching her side. "Why are you doing this?" she asked again, her voice low. Cain kept moving. "Because I've seen enough war, enough lies. If saving you means I'm hunted, so be it." Her eyes softened, but fear lingered. "You don't understand. Your people want me dead. My people want you dead. We will never be safe." And she was right. By noon, they weren't only hunted by humans. Alien scouts had caught Cain's scent too. To them, he was the thief who had stolen one of their own. To both sides, Cain and Liara were traitors. The first attack came fast. A squad of human soldiers caught up to them in a collapsed marketplace. Shouts filled the air. Boots slammed on broken stone. Rifles were raised. "Cain, step away from it." A soldier barked. "Orders are clear. Stand down." Cain pulled Liara behind a broken wall. He didn't raise his rifle. Instead, he shouted back, "She's not what they told us she is. She's not a monster." Laughter came from the soldiers. "You've lost your mind. Move away or we shoot." The Moments stretched like a wire ready to snap. Leora's claws trembled as she whispered, "Let me fight." "If they kill you." "No," Cain cut her off. "Not unless we have no choice." Bullets ripped through the wall. Dust filled the air. Cain dragged her through the ruins, darting between broken columns. They barely escaped, their breaths sharp, hearts pounding. But there was no time to rest. As they stumbled into the forest, beyond the city, another group waited. Aliens. Liara froze. Her glowing eyes widened as she recognized them. Warriors from her clan. Their armor gleamed, and their weapons glowed with deadly energy. "Liara," one of them snarled in their language. "You shame us, walking beside the enemy." Cain couldn't understand the words, but the rage in their eyes was clear. They weren't here to rescue her. They were here to kill both of them. Liara stepped forward, her chains still dragging. Her voice broke. "He saved me. He is not like the others." But the alien warriors didn't listen. To them, she was tainted. To them, Cain was filth. Energy bolts lit the trees. Cain grabbed Liara and ran. The forest burned behind them. By nightfall, the two of them were exhausted. Their bodies ached. Their clothes were torn. Yet they found shelter in a cave, the firelight flickering on the walls. Liara sat trembling, her chains clinking softly. "Now you see," she whispered. "We are hunted by both sides. To them, I am a monster. To them, you are a traitor. We have nowhere to go." Cain sat across from her, his face pale in the firelight. "Then we'll make our own way," he said firmly. "They can call us whatever they want. Monster, traitor, doesn't matter. As long as you're alive, it means they're wrong." Her eyes locked onto his. For a moment, the fear in her face melted, replaced by something unfamiliar: trust. Deep inside, both of them knew the truth. The humans would not stop. The aliens would not stop. And somewhere, in the middle of that endless hunt, Cain and Liara would have to decide whether to keep running or to stand and fight. The cave was cold and damp, its stone walls whispering. With the sound of dripping water, Cain built a small fire from broken branches, its glow pushing back the shadows. Liara sat near the flames, her knees pulled close, the chain still hanging heavy from her wrists. Outside, the forest was alive, with danger patrol drones circling in the night sky, alien scouts searching for signs, and human squads sweeping the ground. But here, for a short moment, the two fugitives had silence. Cain watched her quietly. In the firelight, Lyra's face looked softer, less terrifying than the soldiers had described. She didn't look like a monster. She looked like someone carrying a wound too deep to heal. He finally asked, "Why do they fear you so much? What aren't they telling us?" For a long time, Liara said nothing. Her glowing eyes stared into the fire. Then slowly she spoke. "My people were not always feared," she began, her voice low, trembling. "We once lived in peace. We built cities of crystal and light. We healed the land instead of burning it. We were guardians." Cain frowned. "Guardians? Then how did it turn into this?" Liara closed her eyes. "Because they betrayed us. Both sides." Cain leaned forward. "Explain." She lifted her chained hands, showing the marks on her wrists. Deep scars cut into her skin, older than the chains she wore now. "Your leaders found us first. They said they wanted peace. But they wanted power. My people had gifts of the mind, of energy, of healing. Humans feared those gifts. They took some of us, changed us." Her voice cracked. "They turned us into weapons." Cain's stomach twisted. He had seen human labs before, the way science could strip away morality in the name of victory. "And you?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I was one of them. I was taken when I was young. They cut into me. They tested me. They made me kill. When I broke free, my own people no longer saw me as one of them. To them, I was corrupted. To humans, I was dangerous. To both, I became the monster. The fire crackled, filling the silence that followed. Cain sat frozen. Every soldier back at camp had spoken of Liara like she was a demon, a nightmare. But here she was broken, scarred, and yet alive, not a beast. A victim. He finally asked, "Why didn't you fight me? Back at the cage, you could have killed me." Her eyes met his, glowing in the firelight. "Because you touched me, without fear." No one had done that since before the chains. In that moment, I remembered what I was, not what they made. Memi, the words hit Cain harder than any bullet. He realized then that the war wasn't just about territory or pride. It was about lies. Lies that kept both sides blind to the truth. Suddenly, a noise outside the cave snapped them both to attention. Cain grabbed his rifle, raising it toward the shadows at the entrance. Liara stiffened, her claws flexing. A voice called out, "Human. Sergeant." "Cain, we know you're in there. Bring out the monster and surrender." Dozens of flashlights cut through the trees outside. Soldiers, they had been tracked. Cain's heart pounded. He looked at Liara shaking, terrified, but ready. "You have to run," she whispered. "They will kill you for helping me." Cain shook his head. "No, we run together." The soldiers outside loaded their weapons. "Last warning, Cain. Step out, or we'll burn you both alive." Cain's jaw tightened. He turned back to Liara. "You said your people had gifts. Can you use them?" Liara hesitated, then slowly nodded. "But it will hurt. It will remind me of what they made me." "Then remember this," Cain said firmly. "You're not their weapon anymore. You're not their monster. You're you. And right now, I need you." Her glowing eyes widened. For the first time, someone wasn't using her power, they were trusting her. The soldiers outside moved closer, their boots crunching leaves, rifles ready. Liara rose to her feet. She spread her chained hands, and for a moment, the firelight bent toward her. The air grew heavy. Sparks crackled in the cave walls. Cain stepped beside her, rifle aimed, ready to protect her even if it cost his life. As the first soldier shouted, "Fire!" The cave exploded with light. A wave of energy burst from Lyra's body, slamming outward like a storm. The ground shook, trees bent, and soldiers were thrown back into the forest with screams of shock. When the light faded, silence filled the night. The humans were gone, driven back, not killed. Liara fell to her knees, breathing hard, tears streaming down her face. I can't control it for long." Cain knelt beside her, gripping her shoulder. "You controlled it enough. That's what matters." She looked at him, trembling. "Now you see. This is why they fear me. This is why they call me a monster." Cain met her eyes without flinching. "No, I see a girl who saved my life. And if that makes you a monster, then I'll gladly stand with monsters." Outside, the forest burned faintly from the blast. Both humans and aliens would know where they were now. The hunt would grow worse. But in that dark cave, for the first time, Liara felt something stronger than fear, hope. The forest was alive with the smell of smoke from Lyra's blast. Ash drifted through the night air like falling snow. Cain and Liara moved quickly, deeper into the woods, their steps uneven but desperate. Every sound, every snapping twig, every owl's cry felt like a warning. Both sides would be hunting them harder now. By dawn, they found shelter in an abandoned watchtower, its wooden beams half rotten, vines crawling up the sides. Inside, broken furniture and dust covered the floor, but it was safe enough to rest. Liara collapsed against the wall, her chains clinking softly. Her glowing eyes were dim with exhaustion. Cain knelt beside her, pulling a flask from his belt. He offered it. "Water," he said. She took it with trembling hands, drinking greedily. Then she paused, staring at him. "Why do you always give me what you need yourself?" Cain shrugged. "Because I can survive with less. You can't." Her lips parted as if she wanted to argue, but no words came. She lowered her eyes, clutching the flask like it was more than water, like it was trust. Days passed in hiding. Cain hunted small animals for food, cooked them over weak fires. Liara, unused to such meals, struggled at first, but hunger always won. She began to learn human habits, the way Cain salted meat, the way he sharpened his knife, the way he checked the wind before moving. Sometimes she asked questions, her voice soft and curious. Why do humans fight so much? Cain would answer with a tired smile. Because we forget what peace feels like. Other times, she would try to make him laugh. She mimicked his gruff tone, his serious expressions. He chuckled, shaking his head, and for the first time in years, he felt like more than just a soldier. In the evenings, when the forest grew quiet, Cain taught her simple human words she didn't know. She repeated them carefully, her voice like music in the silence. And in return, she whispered words from her own language, words no human had ever heard before. It was a strange bond, but it grew stronger every day. One night, rain hammered the roof of the watchtower. Lightning lit the sky, thunder shaking the earth. Cain sat by the fire, cleaning his rifle. Liara sat close, her claws tracing the chain marks on her wrists. "Cain," she whispered. He looked up. "Do you ever regret touching me?" "That first night?" He studied her face. "No, not once." She lowered her eyes. "Everyone else sees me as a curse, a weapon. Even my own people fear me. But you see something different." "I don't understand why." Cain put down the rifle. He leaned forward, his voice steady. "Because I've killed real monsters. And they don't look like you. Monsters aren't made of claws or glowing eyes. They're made of hate. And I don't see hate in you, Liara." Her chest rose sharply. For a moment, she looked away, hiding, the tears gathering in her eyes. The storm outside roared, but inside the watchtower, a fragile warmth filled the air. The next morning, their fragile peace shattered. A drone's hum broke the silence. Cain's eyes shot to the window. A black machine circled above the trees, its red eye scanning. "They found us," he muttered. Lyra's claws flexed. "Humans or mine? Doesn't matter," Cain said grimly. "Both want us dead." The drone fired a flare. Seconds later, the sound of engines and marching feet echoed through the forest. Troops were coming fast. Cain grabbed his pack. "We move, now." Liara tried to stand, but her legs shook. Days of running, chains cutting into her skin, had weakened her. Cain caught her before she fell. "You can't carry both of us," she whispered. Cain smirked, lifting her into his arms. "Watch me." They fled through the rain-soaked forest as soldiers closed in. Gunfire cracked behind them, bullets tearing through trees. Cain ran till his lungs burned, Liara clinging to him, her glowing eyes wide with fear. When they reached a river swollen with storm water, Cain didn't stop. He jumped in, the current pulling them downstream. Shots hissed above the water, but the river carried them away. Hours later, soaked and shivering, they crawled onto the muddy bank. Cain collapsed, chest heaving, water dripping from his hair. Liara lay beside him, trembling but alive. For a long time they just lay there, listening to the storm fade into silence. Then Liara whispered, "You should have left me." Cain turned his head, meeting her glowing eyes. "And go back to what? A war full of lies?" "No, Liara. You're the only thing real in this madness." Her breath caught. She turned away, hiding her face, but Cain saw the faintest smile on her lips. That night, as they sheltered beneath a fallen tree, Liara shifted closer to him. Her chains brushed his arm. "You've given me more than freedom," she whispered. "You've given me myself again." Cain looked at her, the firelight flickering across her face. For the first time since the war began, he felt something he thought was long dead inside him, hope. But outside, the world was closing in. Both armies were still hunting. and the bond they had built, fragile and dangerous, would soon be tested. In ways neither of them could imagine. Asterisk, the river had carried them far, but not far enough. By the fourth day, Cain and Liara stumbled into a ruined outpost near the borderlands. The buildings were half-burned, walls black with smoke. Rusted signs in both human and alien languages warned trespassers away. But here, for the first time, in weeks there were no patrols. Cain helped Liara into the shelter of a crumbling barracks. She leaned against the wall, her glowing eyes dim from exhaustion. The chains around her wrists were raw with blood now. Cain tore strips of cloth from his uniform, binding the wounds gently. "You should rest," he whispered. She nodded weakly, but her eyes never left his face. "You've carried me farther than anyone else would." "Why?" Cain gave a tired smile. "Because I made a choice, and I'm not turning back." For a moment, silence hung between them. Then, for the first time, Liara reached out, not with trembling claws, but with a gentle hand. Her fingers brushed his arm. Cain felt the warmth of her touch, soft despite the chains. But their moment didn't last. By nightfall, shadows moved. Outside the outpost, Cain noticed them first, a glint of steel, the crunch of boots. He raised his rifle, scanning the dark. Liara tensed, voices called out, human voices. Familiar ones, Sergeant Cain. He froze. He knew that voice, Captain. Rourke. Lyra's eyes widened. "It's a trap," she whispered. Cain didn't answer. He stepped outside slowly, rifle lowered, but ready. Soldiers surrounded the outpost, rifles aimed. Their armor glinted under the pale moonlight. Captain Rourke stood at the front, his face twisted in anger. "I should have known you'd run here. Always chasing ghosts." Cain's voice was firm. "Stand down, Captain. She's not what they told us. She's not the enemy." Rourke barked a harsh laugh. "Not the enemy? She's killed dozens of our men. She's a weapon, Cain. And you," his eyes burned with disgust, "you're a traitor." The soldiers raised their rifles higher. Inside the outpost, Liara stepped into the doorway. The moonlight lit her glowing eyes, her chains dragging across the stone floor. She looked less like a monster and more like a girl caught between two worlds. Rourke pointed at her. "Bring it here." Now Cain moved in front of her, his rifle lifted. "You'll have to go through me." The soldiers froze. None dared fire first. The silence was heavy, the standoff sharp as a blade. Rourke's voice dropped to a venomous whisper. "You're throwing your life away for that thing?" Cain's grip tightened on his rifle. For her, not a thing, not a monster, her. For a moment, even the soldiers hesitated. Doubt flickered in their eyes. They had all seen the cage. They had all heard the whispers of Cain's defiance. Rourke saw it too, and it enraged him. He ripped a pistol from his belt, aiming it straight at Cain's chest. "This ends now." The shot rang out. Cain fell back, his shoulder tearing with pain. Liara screamed, rushing to him, chains clattering as she dropped to her knees. Her glowing eyes burned with fury, her claws trembling. Rourke aimed again, but before he could fire, a blast of energy erupted from Liara. The ground shook. Soldiers were thrown back, their rifles flying. Only Rourke stood firm, his pistol still raised. He sneered. "See? That's what she is, a weapon. A monster." Liara's chest heaved. Her power glowed around her, but tears streamed down her face. She wasn't lashing out blindly. She was protecting Cain. And in that moment, the soldiers saw the truth. Cain, bleeding but alive, struggled to his feet. He pressed a hand to his wound, his rifle slipping to the ground. He looked at his captain with fire in his eyes. "You want to call her a monster?" Cain shouted. "Fine, but I fought real monsters, Rourke, and every one of them wore our uniform." The words cut deeper than any bullet. Some soldiers lowered their rifles, shame flickering in their eyes. Others looked away. Rourke's face twisted with rage. "Enough," he roared. "If you won't kill her, then I will." He pulled the trigger again, but Kane moved. In that instant, despite his wound, he stepped in front of Liara once more. The bullet tore past his side, missing her by inches. Liara caught him before he collapsed. Her chains rattled as she held him close, her glowing eyes wide with horror. "No," she whispered. "Not for me." Kane's breath was shallow, but his voice was steady. "For you, always." The soldiers didn't move. Their rifles wavered. Some looked at Rourke in disgust, others in doubt. The captain's authority was cracking. Liara lifted her head. Her voice shook the air, heavy with both pain and power. "You call me a monster," she cried, her eyes blazing. "But he is the only one who saw me as more. If that makes me a monster, then I will show you what monsters can do." Energy surged through the outpost. The ground trembled. Chains snapped from her wrists, shattering under the force of her power. The soldiers stepped back, fear flashing in their eyes, and in that moment, Liara was no longer chained. Smoke hung in the ruined outpost like a heavy curtain. The soldiers, who had come to capture Kane and Liara, now stood frozen, their rifles half lowered, unsure of what to do. The ground still pulsed faintly with the echo of Liara's unleashed power. Kane lay against the wall, blood staining his uniform. His breath was shallow, his face pale. But his eyes remained fixed on Liara. She stood tall before him, her chains broken, her glowing eyes burning brighter than the moon. Captain Rourke snarled, pistol still in hand. "You see?" He shouted to the soldiers. "Look at her. This is what monsters are, wild, dangerous, uncontrollable." But no one moved, no one fired. Because what they had seen was not a monster killing blindly. It was a girl protecting the only one who had ever protected her. Lyra's voice trembled, but it carried strength. "I never asked for this power. I never asked for chains. You made me into a weapon, then cursed me for being one." She turned, her glowing eyes sweeping over the soldiers. "But she pointed to Kane. "He touched me without fear. He gave me back my name. If that is what a monster needs to be human, then I will never fear what I am again." Rourke's face twisted with rage. He aimed his pistol at her heart. "Enough speeches, you die now." The shot fired, but Kane, bleeding and broken, pushed himself off the wall. With the last of his strength, he threw himself between Liara and the bullet. The round struck his vest, knocking him back to the ground. Gasps filled the outpost. Liara dropped to her knees beside him, her claws shaking as she pressed her hands against his chest. Tears blurred her glowing eyes. "No, don't leave me. Not now." Kane coughed, pain burning through him, but he forced a weak smile. "I'm not leaving. Not until you're safe." His words lit a fire inside her stronger than any chain or scar. Liara rose slowly. The broken chains still clung to her wrists, rattling with each step. She faced Captain Rourke head-on, her eyes blazing with a power that made even hardened soldiers. "Take a step back. No more running," she said. The ground trembled beneath her feet. Sparks danced across her skin, rising into the air like stars. Her voice thundered, shaking the walls. "You wanted a monster? Then face me." Rourke fired again, bullets flying. But they never reached her. The energy around her flared, bending, the metal melting the rounds mid-air. She walked forward, unbroken, unstoppable. Rourke's hand shook as he tried to reload. For the first time, fear flickered in his eyes. Liara stopped only a breath away. She could have ended him with a single strike. Her claws gleamed in the moonlight. But instead, she lowered her hands. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I am not your monster." She turned her back on him. The soldiers watched, stunned. Some lowered their weapons completely. Others dropped them to the ground. One by one, they stepped away from Rourke, their eyes no longer filled with hate, but with doubt. And something close to shame. Rourke shouted after them, his voice breaking. "Cowards! She'd destroy us all." But no one listened. Cain, still lying on the ground, smiled faintly. His vision blurred, but he saw the impossible. Liara standing free, not by killing, but by choosing not to kill. That was her courage. Liara ran back to him, kneeling at his side. She pressed her hands over his wound, her power glowing soft and warm, not destructive now, but healing. "Stay with me," she begged. "Please." Cain's breath hitched. "You're no monster, Liara. You're hope." Tears slipped down her face as the glow spread from her hands into his body. Slowly, painfully, his breathing steadied. His eyes opened wider. He lived. Liara gasped with relief, clutching him tightly. By dawn, the battlefield was silent. The soldiers, who had once come to kill her, now walked away, shaken and silent, leaving their weapons behind. Rourke was dragged back in chains, his voice lost in angry screams no one cared to hear. Cain sat weakly against a wall, watching the sunrise. Liara stood beside him, her chains broken at last, her glowing eyes reflecting the light of a new day. War between humans and aliens was not over. But something had changed tonight. Something greater than orders, greater than hate. One human had dared to touch what others called a monster. One monster had dared to stand not with claws, but with courage. And together, they had proved that sometimes, the most dangerous thing of all was hope.